All right, so I got a text message from my sister who's in her first couple years of being a band director in Wisconsin, telling me that her woodwind section, the articulation, something is sounding fishy, so what's going on? And I'm also teaching woodwind methods right now, and this is something I'm trying to teach to future band directors, and it's not easy. The interesting thing about clarinet, flute, saxophone, oboe, bassoon, everything we're doing with articulation happens inside of the mouth, so we can't see what's going on. Having said that, we can hear what's going on usually, so it's just a matter of being able to connect those dots, right? It's very different than the violin, right? I don't play violin, so with the clarinet, you shouldn't really see much if it's going well. There's very little movement. The tongue barely moves. All right, tip number 1. The syllable that we teach for young students to learn articulation is not the best syllable. We teach ta. Ta, 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 ta. What do you notice about the syllable ta? It has built-in jaw movement. Some students will try to literally say ta into the instrument. That's not what we're going for. And you see this, and you've all heard this clarinet and saxophone player. That's not it, right? Okay, so there's a better syllable for this. Do. Do, 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 do. No motion. No motion. Do, 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 do. No motion built in here. Okay, speaking of jaw motion, keep the chin down on the clarinet saxophone. Pull the teeth away from the reed. This isn't exactly related to articulation, but that's the number 1 problem with clarinet and saxophone. They're jamming their teeth into the reed. Don't bite on the reed. This is the part of the instrument that vibrates. Keep your teeth away from the reed. All right? Tip number 2, 1 taste bud on the reed. It's always too much, all right? And you can check, I always have my students do tongue checks, Do it outside of the instrument. What do most people look like? Tonguing with the entire tongue. We don't need that much tongue. This is vibrating very fast, but very little motion. 1 taste bud will actually stop the sound. That's all you need. Now this is something you can also hear in the sound, right? If it's too heavy, you're gonna have thuddy, thuds in the sound, and it's gonna be too heavy. If you're just barely touching the reed, much more natural, reboundy, all right? We actually want the tongue to do half of the work for us, okay? Like a flag blowing in the wind. Is the flag exerting any effort? No, it's just existing in the wind. All right, tip number 3, where do we touch on the reed, right? We also teach this a little wrong. We say tip to tip. To me, that would look like this, right? But that's not what you want. That's the sharp edge of the reed. That's probably gonna hurt. Plus, air's going in here. Why would you want to get suctioned into the reed there? So most clarinetists, saxophonists tongue a little bit under the tip. So maybe a better cue would be tip under the reed. Tip. Not down here, up here. All right? So that's something to watch out for. I've seen students tongue like this above a mouthpiece because they don't like the feeling of the reed. You just have to get used to it, all right? I've also seen and watch out for anchor tonguing. Anchoring the tip of the tongue into the bottom teeth and tonguing with the middle of the tongue. Now for anchor tonguing, there's a trick to break this habit as well. And I would show you, but I don't have any dental rubber bands. But if you get some tiny little dental rubber bands, what you can do is put them in the teeth here so that this area has a rubber band in it. They can't put their tongue there. And just leave it there and have them play. It shouldn't bother them because the tongue isn't down there. And then whenever they try to get the tip of the tongue underneath the tip of the reed, they'll feel that rubber band. It's gonna drive them crazy and they'll break the habit. Tip number 4, constant air. This should really be one of the earlier tips because it's just as important, all right? Let's say you have a measure of 16 notes. The air is a whole note, all right? Just keep the air going. tongue just kind of ricochets like a rock. You're skipping across a lake. There's no time to do separate air for each note. It slows down, it's muddy. You have no control over where the notes are. Also the throat, don't tongue back there. You have no control and it's not clear. One other visual I like to use for constant air is a water fountain. You don't turn the water off for tonguing. We're just putting our finger through the water, all right? Keep the airstream constant. So I do not have a water fountain, so welcome to my kitchen. I'll show you with the sink. That's my cat. Notice the water never turns off. Keep the airstream constant. Speaking of that tickly feeling on the reed, if that's what you don't like, just get used to it. How can you get used to it? Try just holding a long note and just put your tongue lightly on the reed and keep blowing. All right, so it's gonna sound a little weird. It'll sound like this. And you can hear, because my air is constant, the sound actually kind of keeps going when the tongue is so lightly on the reed. That's what I want to hear. Can you do that? Give that a try. It's a little tricky at first. If you don't believe the student and they say they're tonguing on the reed and that's not what it sounds like, you can check this. So, oh gosh, should I do it? I've never done this myself. What you can do is mark the tip of the reed about where you want to be tonguing with a non-toxic marker and just have the student do some tonguing. Oh boy, here we go. Uh-huh. What about the flute? Well, the flute is the articulation is much more like speech, okay? Because you're not touching a reed, so your tongue is just touching the hard palate or the area of your mouth right behind the teeth. Like you're saying do. Do, 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 do.